Hey everyone, it's Asa, and welcome to my video on strategic griefing. First of all, I want to define what griefing is. This is basically targeting one or maybe more than one of your opponents, often at the cost of your own board strength. So, positioning is actually not oftentimes thought of in terms of griefing, but I just want to go through this really quickly. If you have multiple players in your rotation, and it's later on in the game, maybe stage 5 or stage 6, you want to position for the players who compete for the same placements as you. For example, if you're on one life and there's another player in your rotation that's one life who you will lose against if you position poorly, but you'll win against if you position correctly against them. And let's say your other two opponents are very healthy and likely to outplace you no matter what. Positioning against the low HP player and getting that one full placement swing guaranteed if you play against them is super important. It's not actually just one full placement swing because if you win, you're still alive, and that's more potential placements. Where if you're dead, it's immediately one. So it's always more than one, in fact. The more common forms of griefing are carousel griefing. Um, this is basically if you take something that's not optimal for your board, but it makes your opponent's board weaker. This is pretty uncommon in the early game. The reason is because you have 7 opponents, it must harm someone more than it costs you. So in the early game, when all 7 of your opponents are kind of equal in your eyes as contenders to outplace you, on stage 2, it would basically have to hurt someone 7 times as much as what you give up. Now keep in mind that what you sacrifice, this actually could happen in some situations. For example, if taking a bow might be worth just arbitrarily like 10 value to you, but taking a spatula might be just a little bit worse. It might be worth like 9 value to you, but someone else, if they get a spatula, they might already have an emblem of a certain kind, and it gives them kind of an Exodia prismatic trait where they're guaranteed to outplace you. It could actually be correct to deny their spatula even as early as stage 2. However, because it's generally 1 out of 7 opponents, it basically has to hurt someone else about 7 times as much as it hurts you. And again, in this case, it only works if taking the spat is not that bad for you. Like a bow, again, is a little bit better, but a spat is fine. On stage 4, there tend to be about 4 players that you're kind of competing for placements against. This could be whether you're at the very top, where you're going to outplace the bottom players no matter what, or the other way around, where you're near the bottom and there's a couple high rollers in the lobby who are going to outplace you no matter what. So you like, I want to talk about positioning first because this concept where you try the same players applies down here. Let's say you're 20 HP on stage 4, and there's a 90 HP player who really needs, again, let's say like a spatula. It doesn't make a lot of sense to grief them because they are likely to outplace you no matter what. So you need to target players that are kind of competing for the same placements. Again, on stage 4, this tends to be about 4 opponents, so it has to be hurt someone else about 4 times as much as it helps you. This, I would say, is also pretty rare on stage 4, but it can happen, especially if there's a really 5 cost dependent unit. For example, if someone's playing Sorks and you're first pick with them and there's a LeBlanc on your side, even if it doesn't have the best possible item for you, if you don't need a very specific item and you're competing against this player for placements, it's pretty reasonable that whatever item that has is not. It could satisfy these conditions where it actually does harm someone 4 times as much as it harms yourself by taking a slightly suboptimal item. If you don't really need anything, sometimes you will really need a specific item for yourself and you won't be able to take it. Uh, on stage 6, there tend to be about, this is just again very rough estimate, there tends to be about 2 players that you're competing against for placements. So it has to harm someone about twice as much as it harms yourself. This most frequently would probably be if someone's getting a 2-star 5 cost off the carousel, in which case you should generally be denying it because at this point of the game, if you're only competing against like 1 or 2 or even 3 like possible opponents, taking a slightly suboptimal item for yourself in order to deny a 2-star 5 cost from someone else oftentimes is worth it. I would say most players probably don't grief enough because it does take a lot of awareness. You have to be scouting diligently and actually know what your opponents want. A lot of times people will ping stuff on the carousel, and a lot of times people do that in order to distract you from what they really want. So you actually have to pay attention and look at their boards yourselves and not get tricked by just people pinging on random things on the carousel. The other type of griefing is holding units. This is something that I find is actually people frequently misuse where they'll just hold units from the players that are contesting them. However, this is often wrong because you actually want to hold units from the players who are competing for the same placements as you. For example, let's say you're playing Sorks and then someone else is playing Sorks, but let's say you're 80 HP and they're 20 HP, or the other way around, and you already have a Zoe too, and you're like holding extra Zoes. In this situation, it doesn't really matter. You're likely to outplace or be outplaced by this other player in most circumstances. Obviously, there are exceptions. For example, the 20 HP player has a lot of scaling augments, or just like really good items, or high rolled like a LeBlanc 2 or something somehow. Then this might not apply. But basically, in a situation where you're most likely not competing for the same placement as someone, it doesn't make a lot of sense to hold their units because you're sacrificing your own economy in order to negatively affect someone else, which doesn't actually matter because, again, you're going to outplace them or they'll outplace you no matter what. A lot of times people just do this out of spite, just because people don't like being contested. But strategically, it doesn't add a lot of value. You actually want to hold units from players who are competing for the same placements as you. So this is also only impactful when many units are gone. So some examples that could happen is if it's in a three-way contest, it can be useful to hold 4 costs in specifically. And the other one is when someone's going for a 3-star 4 cost. So real quickly, I want to pull up a rolling calculator. So this is updated in set 13 recently. So let's say we're looking at 4 costs at level 8. And let's just say there's 30 4 costs out of the pool of other units. And let's just say it's two-way contested. So there's 2 people in the lobby that you're playing against who both have a pair. Let's just say Zoe, same example I've been using. They both have a pair of Zoes and they really need a Zoe 2 as a very impactful unit on their board. So there's 4 Zoes gone, and let's just say they have 30 gold to roll. There's 67% to find one more Zoe and 30 gold. But let's say you hold one of their Zoes, so now there's 5 gone. It only goes to 60%, and if they want to get up to 60%, 67, they actually only need to spend 6 more gold. So you're spending 4 of your own gold, which 10 gold is 1 gold per turn of interest. So you're basically paying about half a gold every single round in order to make your opponents hit like 6 gold later. This is not really worth it, just because there's 10 4 costs in the pool. So with 4 gone, there's still 6. So going from 6 to 5 Zoes is just not that impactful. However, the really impactful scenarios, if it's 3 ways contested, where let's just say there's one of them already hit a Zoe 2 and the other 2 players only have a pair of Zoes. So there's 7 gone. Let's just say 30 gold again. Now they're only 40% to hit. Now, if you hold a Zoe and it goes up to 8, you actually decrease their chances from 40 to 30%. So you decrease their chances by about 1/3, like 33% ish harder to hit. And in order for them to make up for that, they would actually need to roll like 15 more gold. About like 40, I guess like 44 ish in order to get back to that original chance of hitting. So in this case, your gold investment, if you're hurting 2 other players who are competing for the same placements as you, can actually be worth it. The other scenario is if someone's going for a 3-star 4 cost. So this is if they already have 8 copies out, and let's just say they're rolling, let's just say 40 gold. They have a 40% chance of hitting that 3-star 4 cost and basically immediately winning the game. But if you find one copy and you're able to hold it, you decrease their chances drastically because now they're going from 2 possible outs to 1 possible out. So you actually cut it in half, basically. Um, so it goes down from about 40% to 22%. And if they want to bring it back up to 40%, they actually have to spend about double the amount of gold. So you're forcing them to spend about 40 more gold by holding one single 4 cost, which in this case is very worth it compared to the first scenario where we talked about in a 2-way contest where they only need to spend about 6 more gold. That's going to wrap it up on this video for strategic griefing. If you have any questions, let me know in the Discord, and thanks for watching.